All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're live. We're back for our next panel of the day. This is What's the Deal, featuring a great group of panelists that you can see here with me right now. Of course, we have our good friend Drew Curtis, who is a longtime friend of the conference. He is a producer and an entertainment attorney based out of the UK. Another longtime MMFM guru, Craig Bernstein, who is now the head of physical production at A3 Artist Agency out in Los Angeles. And of course, Miguel Lilly, who is an associate at Baker McKenzie in Madrid, Spain. So welcome, guys, to the panel, and thank you so much for doing this, first of all. I'm going to go ahead and now bring you guys in one at a time so you can give us a quick update on what you're up to now, and then we'll switch to the group format again. So let's start with our friend Drew. How are you, Drew?
Very well, thank you. Delighted to be here, albeit later in the year than expected. Let me try and move myself.
Yes, I was going to say you're a little off to the side, so if you move yourself,
yeah.
Yes, that's the way.
There we are. No, I'm well. We've had sunshine and rain and all that sort of stuff we get in the UK, which is not quite the same as being there in Miami. So this year, obviously, the last 18 months have been difficult for everybody. So I hope you're all doing fine out there. I've been in development on a new project, which I've been fundraising for, so it's a bit quiet. And I finished 2019 with the launch of Ibiza, the Silent Movie, which was a documentary I produced with my partner again, directed by Julian Temple. And then the day job, still trying to help my clients to get their projects off the ground and keeping them alive, keeping them safe, keeping them out of trouble when they try and get into trouble. And that's about it. So thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. Brief recap. Glad you're doing well and you're keeping your colleagues safe. So let's jump over now to Craig Bernstein. How are you, Craig?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. So tell us about the latest. So now you're head of physical production at A3. What does that mean exactly?
Yep. So basically, I'm running the department over here. They haven't had a physical production department before. So I brought over a bunch of clients from my old place and grabbing more clients and just building the business over here. It's perfect time to start. Things are more than robust, but clouds are looming in the distance with this potential strike by the IA. So we can talk about that later as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really hot topic.
Otherwise,
yeah, absolutely. But otherwise,
production's just booming, right now, especially on the TV or streaming side.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like that. We just wrapped up with the Spain Film Commission, and apparently, even places like Spain, the UK, which we saw yesterday, all the major production hubs around the world seem to be like just full on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 5 shows right now in Wilmington, North Carolina, which I don't think has ever seen 5 shows at once.
That's insane. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So excited to get more into that in a couple minutes. But first, let's bring on Miguel Lilly. How are you, Miguel?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
No, everything's good here in Madrid. Following, like we said, it's been very busy. Pretty much nonstop, working with all the big streamers, studios on big productions here in Spain and international productions that are shooting in Spain. So it's been very busy, exciting, lots of really interesting, great projects coming up and being produced.
Awesome. Yeah. Very exciting. Again, we just finished another panel with some of your colleagues in Spain, and they're talking about definitely how busy it is over there in Madrid and other parts. And you also have the San Sebastian Film Festival going on this week, which is kind of cool.
That's right.
So lots going on. So let's definitely switch over and get to the group discussion now. And just talk a little bit of shop. Craig, I want to start with the topic you referenced. What exactly is going on for our audience here with regards to IATSE and its negotiations now with the studios?
Yeah, so the IATSE is sort of the umbrella organization that covers, the cinematographers union, editors union, the union for production designers, and a whole host of others. I think there's 50 something locals that they have going right now. So basically, every couple of years, they redo their agreement with the AMPTP. And this year, the agreement has come up. This year, there's some, new and very interesting, arguments on their side. One is the invasion of weekends. More and more shoots are going on Friday night into Saturday morning, Saturday, late morning, afternoon even. So crew folks aren't having a full weekend off. Also, although there are penalties for hourly employees, those hourly employees are really getting stretched to the limits, 12, 14, 16-hour days, as they try to finish all the stuff that the streamers had, delayed due to the pandemic, as well as just normal production, and the additional costs due to COVID, cause less shooting days and therefore less money to put on the screen. So all of those things are having an impact. And I think right now the crew is a bit fed up with it all, and this is their one opportunity every few years to sort of raise their hands and say, we need to change this, and that's really what they're doing. Unfortunately, the AMPTP, also has huge costs behind the revamp of production, and are less than likely to agree to all the demands. So that's where we are right now. Most of the unions are asking for a strike authorization vote, which just gives them the power to call a strike when they want, which they will probably hold in their back pocket, go back to the table, and see where the negotiations go thereafter. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting October, that's for sure. No one can really afford, for production to stop. The workers, the crew, the people that make things really can't. They've been out of work, a lot of them, for over a year, some of them for the full 18 months. And the streaming wars, are in full fight right now. Peacock's coming online, Paramount Plus, the two last ones sort of to join the streamers. And everybody needs content. So there's way too much production, far too few locations, far too few crew. And that's sort of where the pressure point is right now.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds incredibly crazy for October. Pardon the reference, but it sounds like it's going to be a scary month besides Halloween, potentially, with everything that's going on. But wow, Drew, what do you kind of make of all this? I know you're over on the other side of the pond, but as a lawyer and as a producer yourself, how would you see something like this, getting hopefully ironed out before it gets too crazy?
Well, I think the situation is always about who blinks first, because everyone wants more time, they want more money, they want more, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Craig's last point was that no one can really afford for this to happen, a full-on strike, because people have been out of work and people have been hurting. But I think there is a push from people to take advantage. We in the UK are suffering from, lack of crew. We've always had sort of time work directives built into our contracts that provide for, working time regulations, et cetera, et cetera. But those are government mandated as opposed to industry mandated, and they can be opted out of, on a contract by contract basis. But of course you don't want to, because, there's someone else around the corner who wants to pick your job up. So it's a very difficult situation, I think, for people to be in. My concern is just how much production can go on at the same time. And we're getting studios popping up all over the UK at the moment. Netflix has just bought out a studio that has been shooting a show, a very successful show in the UK called The Midwife. And now there are 2 seasons left to go. They don't know where they're going to be. So I think there's a lot of pressure on people to deliver, but I wonder whether we're going to find too much content. I find it difficult to keep track of all the streamers, see what's going on. Shows leap from channel to channel, but people need to work. So I hope the situation with the IA is going to be that they use the leverage they have because of this timing, but not to the overall detriment of their members.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then just kind of kicking over to Miguel, let's talk a little bit more about sort of your role and international business development. What do you see, come from the States and other places, and how they're kind of managing now this sort of production overflow and everything that's kind of come with that, particularly in light of the pandemic and the shutdown?
I mean, we're seeing everything. I mean, all different formats, all different genres, all different types of content coming and filming here. I mean, I think maybe some of these problems that are happening in the U.S. are helping motivate sort of people to come here, and other places in Europe because, well, it is cheaper to make movies and series here, and there's not the same union issues here as there are there. So I definitely think maybe that could be helping bring some of the studios and streamers over here, because there's great crew bases here in Madrid and in Spain and across Europe. So it's a great alternative to come here and if they're dealing with problems in the U.S.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. But again, this seems to be like a global issue in the sense that, Craig alluded to the streaming wars and how that seems to be changing deal making across the spectrum, right? We just saw this past summer, right? The big deal with Marvel and Disney and obviously the star of their film Black Widow, and how they had expected a theatrical release that went away. Talk a little about in sort of the deal making stage. How are some of these deals, or how do you foresee them changing or evolving? Between talent, whether it's above the line or below the line, and the studios, networks, and producers that are having to make these deals, knowing that the distribution landscape is so volatile and changing.
So was that
Greg,
for
you
me?
want to take that one to start with?
Or yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Drew, go for it. Or did you say Craig?
I said Craig.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Craig, as the agent in the room.
Sure, throw it off to me, Drew.
Yes. And I know a lot of this is speculative because things are changing as we speak, right? And constantly evolving. And I know things get planned out for many years into the future. But just in sort of general ideology or tactics or strategy behind how deals are going to evolve within the industry, understanding how the way that we receive content ultimately is changing so quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll defer to the other two gentlemen sort of dealing with actors and directors and writers, because I think that, those deals have just been climbing because, IP is so sought after these days, as well as, talent on screen. So I think what you saw with Ms. Johansson was, an expectation of a much larger salary, once box office was taken into account, and when that was eliminated as a pot, then she sort of was left with, okay, I'm only getting X, instead of what potentially could be a much bigger multiple of X. Right. So that's going to, affect those big actors, Yeah. I mean, today it was just announced that Amazon made a 3-picture deal with Eddie Murphy. I mean, Who would have thought that a year or two ago, Sort of a fading star, as it were, but, still, can demand at the box office, still fills the seats, bringing folks to anything that he's in. And there's a worth for that. And I think more and more you're going to see that. You're going to see, the streamers trying to lock in talent, give them what appears to be complete freedom. We'll see whether that pans out. For people like Mr. Nolan over at Universal with his new release, and whether or not, they're going to start writing blank checks for him after this one. We'll see, So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, as more corporations take over, as the streamers dominate, and as box office becomes, less than the biggest pot, that comes out of projects.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we've seen today that the Roald Dahl estate has just been snapped up by Netflix. So it's not only tying up actors, it's tying up IP. The same deal happened with Winnie the Pooh and Disney. They were paying a lot of money over a lot of period of time, and then suddenly, about 6 or 7 years ago, they decided to buy the whole catalog outright and just sort of build upon it that way, which is a little bit of the way that the music industry goes when it owns a sort of a music catalog and all those sorts of things. But it does mean that it all comes back to accounting and accountability. How do talent, when they've got a deal in place, actually make sure that they're getting what the studios say they're getting?
Right.
It's very difficult to get numbers out of Netflix or Amazon for how many people watched any particular program. They don't publish them voluntarily. There's no, if there was any, if anyone ever thought there was an obscure accounting system in Hollywood, I think the streamers have just added to that greatly.
Right. Right.
And so, I think maybe the days of high back end deals are gone. But then I read about Knives Out, Craig, and the two sequel deal. 200 or $300 million.
Yep.
And they're only required to make the film for $40 million. And
Wow.
you see, well, all of that money is going to Daniel Craig and the director and whatever. So they're basically saying they're building in a payday, and ignore what we get in terms of subscribers or whatever else. Be happy with what you've got, and stop sitting around waiting for the royalty checks to come in. I don't know. It's difficult to see, but there's definitely a change in the landscape.
Right.
And I think the difficulty is for independent producers, which is what we're obviously focusing on in this sort of conversation, to understand how to navigate those particular situations, because the streamers and everyone will still want to own all IP, all original IP. And if you're producing something that's original, the artist to try and hang on to an element of that. And that's quite complicated.
Yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah, it definitely seems that all the changes between the pandemic, the streaming wars, and everything else, the change in distribution strategy is creating many more questions than answers right now. But which is probably why I put a question mark on your panel, because I know that there's just so much that still needs to be decided and negotiated to make sure that both the studios get the quality and quantity of content that they need, while the artists and production professionals are also working in a safe environment and feel that they're getting properly remunerated for their involvement as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this is great. I know that this panel is a little short. We have some technical details, but I just want to let everyone in our audience know that these are some of the top professionals in the field. Let us know, if you wanted to have private conversations with either Craig or Miguel, if you're looking to go to Spain, or if you're producing, obviously, in the UK and you need some help. Drew is available as well, so I'm happy to make those connections offline. But again, I want to thank the three of you for doing such a great job in sort of encapsulating some of the bigger picture issues that our industry is facing right now.
For sure.
Short
Awesome.
but sweet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah,
this was
you.
Excellent. Great segment. All right, guys. We're going to go off for about 10 minutes, and we'll be back with Animating the Future with our friends from the UK. Stick around.
Maybe not.
Hey, Adrian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. 1 second. Drew, can I just ask you to log off just so that...
I wasn't sure what was going on. Adrian, hi. Yeah. I'll see you next
time. Drew.
A little meet and greet
I'll catch
here.
up with you later.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah,
yeah, we just, our last panel, unfortunately, had a little technical issue. We had to reboot the whole system, but it actually ended very well. And that was the legal panel. What's the deal? And Drew was on that. So
Drew's on that. Cool.
Yeah.